So this morning, what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about Nero. He was one of the seven heads on the beast of Daniel 7 and Revelation 13. But before I get started reading this, I want to first begin with Daniel 7 and then go to Revelation 13, and then we're going to read this parts of this story about Nero. Now, in verse 19, as you see in Daniel 7, verse 19 obviously is in the middle of the chapter, but brief commentary here, background. Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. He couldn't even remember what the dream was. His soothsayers and dream interpreters were almost killed because they couldn't determine what the dream was nor interpret it. And Daniel was sent for, or Daniel said he could interpret it. And so, concerning the fourth beast, there were three beasts that came before it. One was the Babylonian king. The second would have been the Medo-Persian Empire. The third would have been the Greco-Macedonian Empire. The fourth would be the Roman Empire. Verse 19, and I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured and broke into pieces, and trampled the rest with his feet. Now, yesterday, it came to me that this is in reference to Revelation 11. Please bear with me, folks. Verse 1, and there was given unto me a reed like unto a rod, and the messenger stood, saying, Rise and measure the temple of not God, but Jehovah, and the altar and them that worship therein. But the court which is outside the temple, cast it out, banish it, because, and it says, measure it not, because that is the court of the Gentiles. Why? Why would, for a period of time, apparently 3.5 years, the Gentiles be banished from the face of Jehovah? Because, right here, in the holy city they will tread on, to trample, for 42 months. All right. So, let's go back to Daniel 7. Now, who did the trampling? Well, Vespasian was the emperor, and his son, the prince, was the one that spent 3.5 years destroying Jerusalem, trampling with his feet, trampling the rest with his feet. Okay. So, it's kind of the beast, the fourth beast was divided into two sections, but it's still one beast, the fourth beast. All right? I want to make sure you understand this so that there is no confusion. And the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom the three fell. Who were the three that fell? They were the Ostrogoths, the Vandals, and the Heruli. The man at the Vatican uprooted those three. Even a horn that had eyes and a mouth which spoke very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. I beheld, and the same horn made war with the Kodesh. So check this out. We know now, based upon by connecting the dots with Revelation 11, that the non-Christian portion of this beast trampled the Holy Land. They trampled Jerusalem. They trampled all of Judea for 3.5 years. Now the 10 horns, specifically the 11th one, this horn also made war with the saints, and he prevailed against them for 3.5 years. Is that what it says? No. No. Until the Ancient of Days came, and justice was given to the saints, the Kodesh, or the Kaddish, as it is written here. And if you look up the word Kaddish, it means holy, and in Aramaic it's Kadosh. All right? Now, let's listen very carefully. So this papacy wears out the saints of the Most High. And they've been doing it for the last nearly 2,000 years, minus, say, 300, okay, Christians. And intends to change the times and the laws. Now, it was Gregory, where we get the Gregorian calendar, who indeed attempted to change the times, the calendar. And concerning the laws, that would be concerning holy days versus pagan holidays. You see, if you notice, you get context where it says change times and laws. This would be the laws according to the changing of times, which would be the calendar. So you see they've exchanged the Jewish law concerning holy days, and they exchanged that for pagan holidays. Now, I don't want to get on tangent too much, and please pardon me because my mouse, there's something wrong with it. I put a new battery in, it's still not working right, so I have to get it replaced. But if you want, just to make a point here, Roman God's birthday. All right. Let's see if I can find it. I may have to, here we go, okay. As you can see right here, other gods born to virgins on December 25th, and they say they have no idea what they're talking about, okay? So the way you should look at this is this, and also you see Roman Temple of Mithras may align with the sun on Jesus, you see. And as you can see, the sun god. Now you know the sun god is Baal or Baal. And you have to understand that the Israelites, the lost 10 tribes, were cast out of the land because they were worshiping the sun god of the Syrians, as the Romans called him, Sol Invictus. And this sun god was born on December the 25th. as we see right here. This is on Live Science. An 1800-year-old temple in northern England that is dedicated to the god Mithras was built to align with the sun, rising of the sun on December the 25th. Right? Now, some modern-day scholars, well, most modern-day scholars believe that Romans celebrated Mithras' birthday on December the 25th. All right. So, I'll continue with where I was. But most of the Roman idols were born on December the 25th, just so you know. All right, so where were we? We'll continue in... Now it says, and he shall speak great words against the Most High. Do we have proof of this? Well, I provided proof of this. The proof of this is in the Judensal. I have done this video many times. Okay, the Judensal image appears in the Middle Ages, mostly in carvings on church and cathedral walls. And what does it say on here, on there? Well, okay, it says, Rabini Shem HaMeforesh. Why does it say that? They are calling the holy name. They are referring to it as the swine. And not only did the Catholics do this, so did the Protestants, as we read right here in Luther, in von Schemham, or von Schemhamforisch, 1543, Luther comments on the Judensal sculpture of Wittenberg, echoing the anti-Semitism of the image and locating the Talmud in the Sal's bowels, and he says, and I quote, here in our church in Wittenberg, a sow is sculpted in stone, young pigs and Jews lie suckling under her tail. Behind the sow, Rabbi is bent over the sow, lifting up her right leg, holding her tail high, looking intensely under her tail into her Talmud, as though he was reading something acute or ordinary, and is certainly, once again I quote, and I put myself in mortal danger by repeating what Martin Luther said, and he is pointing to Catholicism and agreeing with the Catholics by claiming inside the sow is where they get the name, the holy name. You see it right here. So that is where you make the connection right here. So not only, so that's why I keep telling you Protestants, you think that you are not followers of the man of the Vatican. You are. Because you do the same things that the Catholics do. You blaspheme against the Most High. Speak great words against the Most High, and they shall wear out the saints of the Most High. And the Catholics and the Protestants took turns wearing out the saints of the Most High. The Kodesh, the Kadosh, the Jew. Now right here, this is the reason why I said that there is no distinction made between this is all Rome. This is all the fourth beast of iron. So when it says right here, they shall be given into his hand until the times and the dividing of a time. That's not the end of it. That's actually the beginning of it. Because Daniel had already made it very, very clear that this portion of the beast made war with the saints and prevailed against them. Oh, actually, hold on. Oh, hold on. Okay. It says right here that the one that's more stout with his fellows, that would be the 11th, that would be the papacy, made war with the Kodesh and prevailed against them until the Ancient of Days came. That's a span of nearly 2,000 years. But the one where it says, the part where it says, times, and dividing of a time, that is in reference to the destruction of the temple that occurred in the days of Vespasian when he was the emperor. The court which is outside the temple leave out and measure it not, because it is given to the Gentiles, and the holy city they will tread underfoot for 42 months. And they did. Remember, it is written in the prophets that before Israel is going to be saved, that they must first receive punishment receive destruction, or not total destruction, but by the Gentiles. We've gone over that. All right? But the judgment shall sit, but the judge will sit and take away that dominion and consume it and destroy it unto the end, or at the very, very end. Now you can read that at the very end of Daniel 9. You'll see the same kind of words, where it's I think I'll go to it, because I don't want to miss anything. Go to Daniel 9. Let's see, Strong's Concordance. So in the very last part here, and this 27, it occurred. Titus ordered his troops not to destroy the temple. Why? Because he wanted it placed in the Roman pantheon as a trophy. But the Jews vexed the Romans so badly that he lost control of his men, and they began burning it down, burning the city down. And the temple was burning on the 9th of Av. And in the midst of the week, he will cause a sacrifice and oblation to cease. That would have been around somewhere in the middle of July. And for the overspreading, and then it says on the extremity, the detestable thing, the abomination. Now, what Titus did is, upon the destruction of the temple, he placed the graven image of Jupiter, aka Zeus, at the wing of the temple, and made it desolate until it's consumed. And it was. And then it says, charatz, that it would be a form of judgment. That is a time when the Gentiles will be cut off. It says it will be poured upon the desolator. Okay? Until the time when the Gentiles are cut off. Now you can read about that in, I believe it's either in Matthew 24 or it's in Luke 21. It talks about the Gentiles are going to be cut off when the Son of Man comes. But I want to stick with this. And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole of heaven shall be given to the people, to the descendants of the Kadosh of the Most High. Who are the Kadosh of the Most High? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Those are the ones he made the promises to concerning the Holy Land. So their people will be given the kingdom, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey. Now we're going to go and read Revelation 13. Verse 1, and I stood upon the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And as I explained to you in a previous video, you can go and go through my videos, and you'll see that I point out who the 7 heads were. And I might do another video down the line, but I've also done the 10 horns, who the 10 horns are. You already know by now that 3 of them that were uprooted were the Haruli, the Vandals, and the Ostrogoths. 10 crowns upon his head, and a name of blasphemy. What is the name that they honor? Jesus. It is a name of blasphemy. Why? Because they replaced Jehovah's salvation, which is what Yehoshua means, with another name that is in reference to a swine. S-U-S is a swine. Go look it up. The beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. His feet was as the feet of a bear. And so he's describing all the realms of people which the beast had conquered, or has amalgamated into. Okay. And the dragon gave him power in his seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads, it says, as if it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. Watch this. Emperor Nero. Now, in other part of the Bible, it says that this head, I believe it says that, actually died. But he did. Let me show you. I don't want to add confusion to confusion. What I want to do is help unravel this. Nero's decline and death. Before he left Rome, Nero tried to bribe the officers of the Praetorian Guard to help him. Their reply was not encouraging. Is it so terrible of a thing to die? One repeatedly asked the emperor. Why? What happened with Nero? Well, he was accused of burning Rome, causing the Great Fire of Rome. I believe it's in 64. And he was a murderer, much like Caligula. But he was also the one who ordered Vespasian to bring order to the Jews. Why? Because, you see, Caligula, when Caligula ordered his own statue, idol, as Zeus to be placed in every synagogue in the realm of Rome and in the temple in Jerusalem, Caligula caused the Great Revolt. Shortly after that, Caligula died. And the great revolt was still in progress, and so Nero ordered Vespasian to put down the revolt, even if that meant the destruction of Jerusalem. Following this rejection, the desperate Nero considered his options. One was to flee to Parthia, which is Persia or Iran today. Another was to wait and throw himself on the mercy of the advancing Galba. You see, this is when the civil war began. Nero even toyed with the idea of publicly petitioning the Roman people for the prefecture of Egypt, but gave up the idea when he realized he was likely to be torn apart. The night of June 8th must have passed uneasily for Nero, however. The next day was far worse. The ex-emperor awoke to discover his bodyguard had left him. So gathering his remaining 4 servants, one of which was a gladiator named Sporus, and fled Rome barefoot and in disguise for the villa of his freedman Phaon, just 4 miles outside Rome. Nero then passed the next few hours vacillating over his death. When his servants begged him to avoid ignominious execution by committing suicide, appeared decided and ordered them to dig him a grave. However, while they did so, he wandered around bewailing his fate and muttered, "Dead, and so great an artist." Then a letter arrived, and Nero learned that the Senate had declared him a public enemy. The letter also stated that the Senate had decreed the ex-emperor should be captured and brought to Rome for execution, ancient style. This meant that Nero was to be stripped naked and with his head secured in a wooden fork, publicly flogged to death. The news sent Nero into a frenzied panic. He snatched up 2 daggers, very important. A dagger and a sword is the same thing, and tried the points as if to kill himself, only to throw down again, protesting the time of his death had not yet come. Nero then changed his mind again and asked Sporus to mourn him. Then he begged for one of his remaining servants to set him an example by killing themselves first. The next moment, increasingly erratic emperor was berating himself for his own cowardice. Suetonius records how witnesses stated he bewailed how ugly and vulgar my life has become, before turning on himself, saying, "Come, pull yourself together." Hoofs from a troop of cavalry approaching the villa to arrest Nero finally decided the matter. Rather than face execution, the cornered Nero chose to end his life. Now you notice that he had attempted several times previously, but just couldn't gather up the courage to do so. Why would anyone think this would be any different? However, Nero couldn't quite summon the courage to plunge the knife home himself. His secretary, Epaphroditus, had to help him stab himself in the throat. But did it kill him? Did it? The arresting centurion arrived just in time to catch the emperor's last breath. But was it his last breath? You see, we're only getting information from historians, folks. But despite his outlaw status, respected Nero's last wishes. Galba's freedman, Icelus, cremated the emperor in the gold embroidered robes he had last worn in Greece. Or did he? His ashes, however, were placed amongst those of his father's family, the Domiti, in the Pincian Hill, rather than amongst the other Julio-Claudians. After Nero's death, the citizens of Rome reputedly celebrated in the streets. However, some also mourned. The Greeks were one of the groups who mourned. However, there was also some in Rome who still revered Nero, according to Suetonius, it became customary for people to lay spring and summer flowers on Nero's grave in the years after his death, and some even erected the emperor's statue on the rostra in the forum. Others continued to circulate Nero's edicts as if he were still alive, while rumors began to circulate that the emperor was not dead but would return to confound his enemies. The fact that no one had seen Nero's corpse fanned the flames of these rumors, as did his private burial. The rumors were not helped by the fact that Nero's natal chart reputedly foretold he would lose his empire only to recover it in the east. However, whatever their initial basis, the rumors of Nero's survival did not go away. And for the next 20 years, not one but 3 individuals claiming to be Nero came forward and tried to take the empire. Isn't that an interesting twist? Now, folks, please do not forget that this is a historian. Revelation 3 is the words from above given to Jonah. They call him John, but his name is Jonah. Okay? So, this right here is the pagan version, the pagan account. So it says the first false Nero emerged just months after Nero's death, in the place where the emperor was most beloved, Greece. This false, or maybe he wasn't false, maybe he just couldn't commit suicide, maybe something else happened. Maybe somebody else was dead in his stead, because after all, Nero couldn't kill himself. Could he? This false Nero gathered a group of army deserters and set sail for Italy. However, Emperor Galba, who took the impostor, and I quote impostor, seriously, sent forces out to intercept and to kill Nero. Why didn't they say kill the false Nero? To kill Nero and return his decapitated head to Rome for public display. And of course, then 2 more false Neros arose, one during even the reign of Vespasian's eldest son. So, what I'm saying is this. One of these 7 heads had to be one that received a wound but lived, or wounded to the death, as it were. You see, as it were, or let's see what this word says here. As like, as if, or maybe it was pretense, you see. It could be one or the other. Like as. But like as is pretense, you see. And did live. One of those heads, was it Nero? It looks like it. Now, and the Romans and the Greeks and all the members of their empire, including Persia, because it's listed right here, you can see. All right, let's look at this. The beast rising out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name was blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, Greek, that's Greece, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, that would be Persia, and the mouth as the mouth of a lion, that would be Babylon. And the dragon gave him power and a seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to the death, as it were. Then it says, and his deadly wound was cured. Now, is this revelation referencing the fables or the sayings of the people in this particular article? Is that what's going on? Do we know? Well, one of those heads had to have received either a real or a fake deadly wound, which was healed based upon either. You understand what I'm saying here, folks? All right, let's continue. Now, this beast is Rome. When it says right here to continue for 42 months, this is when Rome, in the days right after Nero, for 42 months destroyed Jerusalem, the holy city. But the whole thing, whether it was, I'm sorry, hold on. So verses 1 through 6 is referencing, listen carefully, folks, hold on. Verses 1 through, please be patient with me, verses 1 through 10 is referencing the pagan beast, the one that serves many idols, but and very much Jupiter and Zeus. Okay, so now we get a little bit more detail in this Revelation 13. And this would be the first beast, the Julian Claudius group, the seven heads. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against Jehovah, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell therein. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. This was the 3.5 years of the destruction of Jerusalem. Who did it? The Julian Claudius dynasty. The seven heads. Of course, the 8th one was the one who did it. But remember, the one head that was wounded as it were to death and his deadly wound was healed, he was actually the one who ordered the destruction of Jerusalem. It was Nero. And this same beast, the Julio-Claudian beast, was given unto him to make war with the Kadosh, that would be the Jews, and to overcome them. And power was given to him over all the kindreds, tongues, and the Gentiles. All right. And all that dwell on the earth worship him. He just said the Gentiles. Those whose names are not written in the book of life from the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that led into captivity. In other words, here's the edict. Because Rome led the Jews into captivity, Rome is going to go into captivity. He that killed with the sword all those nations who are represented at Jerusalem, destroying Jerusalem, shall die by the sword. Why? Because this is what the patience and the faith of the Kodesh. Not the Hagios, the Kodesh. Now here comes another beast. Now, folks, I need you to understand one thing. I do not write books and sell them. I do not sell anything on this website. Why? Because this is my Bible studies that I'm sharing with you. If I were to do as preachers do and sell you books or sell you pamphlets or sell you ideas and they turn out to be incorrect, then I would be a swindler. Just like the rest of them. And I'm not a swindler, so I do not do those things. Now, my point is that the information that I find sometimes changes, although slightly, my belief system. And this is one of those cases. Now watch this. So the second beast. Now I beheld another beast comes up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. And he exercised all the power of the first beast before him. And he caused the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast. Whose deadly wound was healed. Well, that would be Nero. Folks, let me remind you. Let me remind you what happened. We just read about it. Nero, let me show you something. After all the false Nero business right here, for the next 10 years all was quiet on the impostor front as the empire settled under the stabilizing rule of Emperor Vespasian. Now who did Nero appoint to bring quiet in Jerusalem to stop the revolt? It was Vespasian. Why? Remember, it was Caligula. I guess I have to go there, folks. I guess I have to go there. I don't need this anymore, so let's go Caligula. Now you can see several articles here. For instance, like this one, the Jewish peasants block construction of statue of Gaius Caligula. You see? Gaius Caligula, Petronius, they attempted to block Petronius from erecting the statue inside the Temple of Jerusalem, and this is what caused the Great Revolt. It was caused by this. Caligula and the Temple of Jerusalem. Today's post looks at another run-in between Caligula and the Jews under the Roman Empire. Specifically, it deals with Caligula's attempt to erect a statue of himself in the Temple of Jerusalem. But it was an image of himself as Zeus or Jupiter, desecrating the symbolic center of the Jewish diaspora. The Temple of Jerusalem, and within its Holy of Holies, lay at the symbolic heart of Judaism. It provided a focal point for Jews, both at home in Judea and the dispersed across the Jewish diaspora. It would continue to do so physically until the temple's destruction in 70 CE. What did we just read that happened? Vespasian carried out the orders of Nero to put down the Jewish revolt that happened as a result of this episode, probably around 20 years earlier, the Jewish revolt. And what happened? Titus, Vespasian's son, he put the abomination at the wing. Let's see. Okay. Cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. And 4, the extremity, that detestable thing. So Titus, the son of Vespasian, did what it was said that Caligula maybe could or could not do. The fact is, they had already brought everything inside the temple in Jerusalem. They were ready to set it up, but the Jews, the peasants, threw the stuff out and blocked it from happening. When that situation occurred, that was when the Jews were supposed to flee to the mountains. I want to continue here. Now, this beast had 2 horns. Now, horns are kingdoms, like a lamb, and spoke as a dragon. So, my best guess is today that these 2 horns, one of them remained in Rome and the other one in Constantinople. And indeed, Constantine began his reign in Rome, and then he moved to what was later called Constantinople, what is now called Istanbul. So there were 2 Romes. And so this is when Christianity began. Yes, I say this is when Christianity began. Now people will say that it is written that the Syrians called the Nazrim, called them Christians. Did that make the Nazrim Christians? No! Christians were around 800 and some years before Yehoshua in jolly old England. That's right. Jesus Christos was born over 800 years before Yehoshua. So it's not the same thing. The Nazrim and the Christians are not the same thing, just because it is written in the scripture that in those days the people at Antioch began to call them Christians. I'll go to that, I think. I don't even need to read my email anymore. Okay, so Bible Hub. I did that emailed myself so that in case I needed to go back and find some things that I forgot, it's like taking notes. It was just my way of doing it. All right, so let's see. I wonder if it's in. Come on, stop it. When the people of Antioch began to call them Christians. I may have to Google it. Okay. You know, it's funny when you read this. It says tradition. Tradition? Watch out for traditions, folks. Holds that the first Gentile church was founded in Antioch. Acts 11, verse 20 through 21, where it is recorded that the disciples, not of Jesus Christ, of Yehoshua the Moshiach, who were first called Christians. So this is in Acts 11, verse 22. All right. 22. What just happened? Oh, there it is. Okay, so I need to go to Strong's Concordance. That's not what it says. Why did they say it was it's probably 23. 23. Oh, here we go. It's in 26. And when they had found them, he brought them to Antioch. And it came to pass that a whole year they assembled themselves with the assembly and taught many people. And the disciples were called Christians first in Antioch. Well, that could be the people in Syria and Antioch called them Christians. Did the disciples call themselves Christians? No, they did not. Now, I'd done a video a while back proving that the Galileans, which were the 12 disciples, did not speak Greek. All right? Especially Peter did not speak Greek. Which of the disciples spoke Greek? The one to the Gentiles. Paul. Paul was the only one who spoke Greek. Because Paul was born in Tarsus, Greece. What did Paul call himself? All right. To the Jew. First Corinthians 9. To the Jew, not I became, because he always was one. To the Jew, I'm a Jew, so that I might win the Jews. To those who are under the Torah. And in other words, so when he went and spoke to the Jews, he would be sure to not eat unclean animals. Okay? He would not do anything that would offend them. He would be to them as a Jew. But so I might win those that are under the Torah. All right? So we'll continue in this, and we'll go to verse 21. To them that are outside the Torah, as outside the Torah. So when he was with the Gentiles, he would eat their food. Not being lawless altogether, but being under the Torah of Moshiach, not Christ, that I might gain them which are outside the Torah. To the weak I became as weak, that I might gain the weak. I made all things to all men, that I might be by all means save some, anyone. And I do this for the gospel's sake, that I might be partaker thereof with you. Okay, so he called himself a Jew still. And then there's another passage. And you'll notice, you can look through out of all of Paul's writings, he never, ever stated with his mouth the word Christian. There was only one time where he quoted the emperor at the time, where the emperor said that Paul is going to persuade him to be a Christian. But Paul never used that word himself. Romans 2, verse 29. No, a person is a Jew who is one inwardly. And circumcision is circumcision of the heart. So if you believe the real gospel, not the Christian false gospel, but if you believe the true gospel, number one, that the Messiah is going to gather all Israel, or that Jehovah himself is going to gather all Israel to the Messiah, and that the Messiah would be a light to the Gentiles. If you believe that, then you are a Jew, not a Christian. Because the Christians, they believe that Christianity has replaced Israel. That Christians have replaced Israel. Now, how is it that one who is a Gentile becomes a Jew? We go back to Romans 11. Oh, I'm sorry. Romans 11. This chapter is what separates the righteous from the wicked. Okay? Among the Gentiles. Read the whole thing. Always read this one over and over. Ingrafting among the Gentiles. Now, he says right here in the beginning, has Jehovah cast away his people? Jehovah forbid. He had not cast away his people. What do the Christians say today? They blasphemed. They blasphemed the people of Jehovah. They blasphemed Jehovah's holy name, as I just pointed out to you today. They do not believe in the ingrafting of the Gentiles among Israel. Because it says right here that if the first fruit is holy, the lump which is Israel is also holy. And if the root is holy, then so are all 12 branches. Now, if some of the branches were broken off, obviously temporarily, and you being a wild olive, you were grafted in not to replace them, no! Not to replace them among them, and partaking jointly, you can see it right here, it's what it says, partaking jointly, he says it twice, jointly with them, with Israel, of the root and the fatness of the olive tree. Don't boast against the Israelite branches, because if you boast, you do not bear the root, but the root bears you. Because if you boast against the branches, you also boast against the root, and indeed they did, by blaspheming the holy name. So now you know the difference between the righteous Gentiles and the wicked. those who blasphemed the holy name and persecuted Israel, are going to receive judgment. They can call themselves Christian all they want to. That name is not going to save them. Paul warned about the severity of Jehovah, on which them severe severity toward you goodness, if you continue in his goodness, otherwise you shall also be cut off. And it's not if they, Israel, still abide no longer in unbelief. It is not if. It is before they believe. They will be grafted in again. And that belief, or that grafting in again, is going to cause them to believe, because Jehovah is able to graft them in again. Verse 25, for I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits, that partial blindness has happened to Israel until the time of the Gentiles comes to an end, or the times when the Gentiles are cut off. When are the Gentiles going to be cut off? We just read about that. Was it? It's either in Daniel 9 or Daniel 7. Okay. Consume and destroy, perish at the end. So the kingdom of Gentiles is going to be consumed and destroyed at the end. When? Let's go to Luke 21. Let's see if I can find it there. Now we see here that the time was coming shortly at those days, that when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies by Titus and Vespasian, know that its desolation is nigh, and let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart, and let not that which are in the rural areas go to Jerusalem, because these are the days of vengeance, that all things which are written in the Scripture will be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. For there shall be great distress in the Aretz, the Holy Land, and wrath upon this people, the Jews. And they will fall by the edge of the sword, and they shall be led away captives into all the Gentiles. And they were. And those of you who say this did not happen, yet you are Holocaust deniers. And Jerusalem be trodden down. Now here is a third mention of the treading down, as we just read in Daniel 7. By the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles is fulfilled. Now, if we go to I want to go quickly to Matthew 24. It says right here first, and there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and upon the earth tribulation, distress upon the Gentiles. See? Upon the Gentiles. That's the tribulation upon the Gentiles coming next. Now, it says in Matthew 24, it says, not immediately, but on the other hand. Adversative part, but on the flip side. After this tribulation, that's the tribulation upon Jerusalem. And we read in Daniel 7 that this beast would rule over the Jews until the time when the Kodesh would take the kingdom. That's what it said. We read that. So after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars, that meteorites shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. That would be the meteorites falling out of the sky. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in the sky, and then shall all the tribes of the earth be what? We just read cut off. Here we go. To be stricken, to be cut off. That's when the time of the Gentiles comes to an end. That's when the Gentiles will be cut off. And the elect Israel will be gathered from one end of the sky unto the other, as it says right here, from one end of the sky unto the other. The Gentiles will be cut off, and the Kodesh, the people of the Kodesh, the people of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, will be gathered back together. But what I wanted to point out to you today, it appears that Nero was the beast, or was the head, I should say, because you see, the first beast and the second beast, the first beast in Revelation 13 is the Julio-Claudius dynasty. In other words, the 7 heads. Now, Vespasian, he was the 8th. He was not a part of the Julian-Claudius dynasty. But he carried out the wishes of Nero. Nero was the head that received a wound to the head, and the deadly wound was healed. The Julio-Claudius dynasty was the first beast that had a wound to the death, but the deadly wound was healed. I hope I have made this clear and understandable. I am, after all, a backwoods country boy. I am not the smartest man on earth. I'm one of the least of the brethren. I do not have a college education. I was never taught at a seminary. I just have a high school education. That's it, folks. I never even took typing class, as some of you can probably tell by now. So I'm making this, try to make this understandable as possible for the simple mind like me.